Hi, if you're new here, my name's Leah. I am a final year medical student and it's been a long time since I've done a long chit chat sit down video. There's a reason I really wanted to do this one, so here I am. So I wanted to talk a little bit about a journey that I've been on now for nearly a year, if not longer, and that is about the diagnosis that I received in January and the journey that I've been on then, which is that I am diagnosed with autism. And that is something I was really scared to put out there for the longest time because loads of reasons. I think I was confused, I didn't really know myself. I think something that a lot of people can relate to when they get diagnosed is that it's that feeling of, well, who am I? Because I've definitely spent years and years and years of masking. I look back now and I think, okay, that makes sense why I felt like that. And it makes sense why I reacted away to a certain situation, why I didn't understand a certain situation. And you suddenly get to that moment of being like, now I understand myself, but who actually am I? And that's kind of what I want to talk about today. And I want to talk a little bit about how my diagnosis even came around, what made me get myself on the waiting list, all of that stuff. And I hope it'll be helpful to someone out there who maybe is in a similar situation. Anyway, so I will take you back to the beginning of last year. During that time, if you know me, I am diagnosed with anxiety and depression and I take sertraline. And I was never the best at being on track with ordering my medication. I just struggle with remembering, okay? And I can put a million apps on my phone and I can put a million this and that and I just get distracted. And this had happened quite a few times. I had forgotten again. I had to call an emergency prescription out of hours because it was a Sunday as well. I had obviously asked for my prescription and I had an out of hours GP and he had a special interest in autism, ADHD, in young women, and specifically the late diagnosis of that. Just complete stroke of luck that I got him. And we were talking and talked a little bit about I'm a med student and stuff as well. He kind of said, look, I've been looking through your medical records and I was just wondering if anyone's ever brought up neurodivergency to you, autism, ADHD. And I was a bit like, no, never. It's something I've literally never thought about. He was like, well, you know, kind of just looking through some of the things that you've stated when it comes to your anxiety and stuff, it doesn't quite add up exactly with kind of that diagnosis. Like obviously sometimes yes, but there are other things which, you know, sound a bit different. And I was like, okay, I was a bit like, oh, like what do I do with this information? A little bit kind of confused and a little bit just like, well, I don't really know what to say to this because I've never expected this to come around. He was like, look, I'll send you a load of information that you can look through, you can make this decision yourself, and if you're happy I can send this like discussion I've had to your GP and they can fill out a form to get you on a waiting list. There's a really long waiting list, so you can take yourself off it at any time. And I was like, you know what, yeah, okay, that'd be really good. I have always felt like I've had issues with understanding myself and understanding why I've reacted a certain way to different scenarios. But like, okay, yeah, that's fine, I think. And then came off the phone and just remember speaking to people like, oh, this is what they said. They want me to look at sort of going on the pathway to see if I'm potentially autistic or have ADHD. This was met with a confusion, I think, from people. That mixture of the stereotype being like, well, you're not autistic, or if you're not got ADHD, you don't come across like that. You don't look like that. I don't know what that means, by the way. I don't know what an autistic person looks like. But yeah, I had a lot of that. And I think it just comes from a lack of education, lack of understanding, and all of the stereotypes that are out there associated with neurodivergency. And some of them that I'd probably held to myself, I hold my hands up, and because I didn't understand, I thought, well, there's no way. I don't have this and that, or I don't behave that way, or whatever. Just a complete lack of understanding even from my perspective. So from other people that weren't going through it, you know, I can't be mad about them not understanding, but I can obviously educate them. I kind of had to educate myself first before I even looked at kind of speaking to other people about it. I spent a lot of time talking to people that I trusted about it, that had a diagnosis, looking more into myself and my past and why I'd been a certain way on certain situations and things that I felt, and really kind of looking into those feelings and looking into times that I'd perhaps tried to behave a different way or act a certain way to fit in with what I felt society wanted from me. I realised that was something that I had been doing for a long time, really trying to mould myself into what society wanted. I'm a chronic people pleaser to a fault, and this was something that I always kind of knew about myself, but I didn't realise that a lot of that was because I was trying to fit the mould of what I felt other people wanted from me, what I thought was the right thing to do. I always say I was kind of juggling with the mixture of being a best friend but fitting that vibe. That was down to perhaps dressing a certain way, acting a certain way, talking a certain way about certain things, trying to be the best student, and that came from acting a certain way, behaving a certain way, trying to enjoy things that I didn't necessarily enjoy. And that was obviously really difficult growing up, and that led to a lot of need for not just academic validation, but I think validation from everyone, validation from friends, from family, from boys, from education, from so many different things, because I really lacked that validation in myself because I just didn't understand who I was. And I didn't understand why I couldn't just be like someone else. So I'd do my best to fit that mold of being like someone else. That's kind of when I realised, okay, maybe he's right. I think there is a lot of confusion over the last sort of decade or so of my life of just not really understanding myself and not really ever understanding myself. So I was given a mentor through Spectrum First, which was paid for through the student finance that they do, which I think is absolutely great, because even when you don't have the diagnosis, when you're on the wait list, you can still get the support, which I think is brilliant. And I had my lovely mentor, and she was just like, she's such a big part of how I am now who I am. And at first, I must admit, again, trying to be honest with you guys possible, I was like, well, I'm sure I'm taking up someone else's space for this. Like, I don't think I need this. I don't really understand what I'm gaining from it and what they're gaining from it. And I'm sure there are other people out there that would gain a lot more than me. I remember in the first meeting kind of being like that and kind of being like, oh, yeah, I don't really know what I need from this. I'm very anxious. I do struggle with low mood, but I don't really know kind of like what neurodivergent is to me. I don't know how this affects me. She was just exceptionally kind, exceptionally patient. I felt relaxed straight away. And even now I look back and I realise, like, who was this person you were portraying to this woman? Like, you're like so different now. I'm so much more myself now with her. But at the beginning, I think I was like proper prim, proper like, oh, hi, yeah, I'm this, I'm that. And even down to like how I spoke was like so different. And like, yeah, my tone of voice, everything. And I think it was during that time she was just so understanding when I was eventually able to open up. And she was like, this is so normal for people that have autism. And I was like, oh, okay. I just thought this was like some weird thing in me because society had told me that it was weird or rude or annoying or something like that. And even down to little things too, I really struggled to sit on a seat normally. And I've really struggled with not being able to voice my opinion. And I've had a really big issue with injustice and so many other things. That's just a couple of examples. And she just made me really realise that that's okay. And it's difficult, I think, someone that has a neurodivergency, whether they are diagnosed, undiagnosed, know about it, don't know about it like I did, is you feel like you spent a lot of your life trying to live up to other people's unreachable expectations. I certainly felt like that. Now realised that, yeah, perhaps they were unreachable expectations for me to reach, but also be happy and to be myself. But also, that's not a bad thing. That's not because they were expectations I had to reach. It's just that my brain works differently. That brings so many other amazing good things to the table. I just think I'd spent so much time trying to put myself in this box of what I thought other people needed from me or what other people said they needed from me, when in reality that just wasn't going to work for me to also be myself at the same time. And that's how masking, come into play as well. I mean, definitely been masking for years, trying to meet people's expectations and to fit a certain way. And I think especially when you're a teenager as well, when you're really starting to learn about yourself and you're really growing into the adult that you're going to become, but also being surrounded by sort of some of the toxicity that comes out of being a teenager and all the changes that are happening at the same time. And I was definitely going through that. Like, I was trying to be someone I wasn't all the time, whilst trying to also do things I wanted to do, but also that didn't align with the character that I was building for myself, and it was all really, really difficult. And I think actually I struggled with my neurodiversity more when I was a teenager because I just didn't understand, than now as an adult, where I think I'd just become so used to suppressing and masking that it was just normal at that point. So when I eventually, the diagnosis came around, it came around really quick, and I'm very grateful and very lucky because I know people wait years. Mine was put on the list, I think in February, and I got my diagnosis January. I remember kind of having the conversation with the person, and if you are waiting for a diagnosis, it's so chill. It's really not scary. I was really worried about how scary it was going to be. It was really relaxing. He let me have as many breaks as I needed. I felt really guilty, and I'm sure, again, another thing I think we do as neurodivergent people is we apologise all the time. And I was apologising, like, oh, I'm sorry, like I'm fidgeting, and I can see myself in the camera, I can see that I'm fidgeting and I'm moving around and being way too expressive. I just felt, really bad. And he was like, no apologies, you're absolutely fine, what you're doing. And I remember going through the questions and being like, tick, tick, yep, this happens, this is how I feel. And at the end he was like, I have to send you all the paperwork and stuff, but I think it's pretty clear that you are autistic. And I was like, oh, okay. And just like that, it's just like, and it's like, do I now just, like, what happens now? Like, I have just been given this diagnosis, paperwork came through, and I was like, yeah, it takes pretty much every box. And I was like, well, what do I do with this information? What am I meant to do with this information? Does my life change now? Do I have to go around and tell everyone? Do I need to just start being absolutely myself now because I've got this diagnosis and I shouldn't be ashamed of it, and I can just go off and take the mask off and be like completely myself? No, of course not. It was really, really difficult. Didn't feel like I wanted to tell anyone because I was so scared of the stereotypes. I didn't want to change. I didn't want people to suddenly think that I'm changing. At the same time, I wanted to try and be more myself, but then I was worried that myself wouldn't go down well. It was really, really difficult. Luckily, like I said, I had this mentor I was meeting up with once a week, and that just made a huge difference. She really just made me feel not alone. It was just great to kind of feel like, okay, now, because I think people think that once you've got a diagnosis that the door kind of closes and that's the end of the journey. I, now looking back, realised that actually getting the diagnosis was only the start of it. It was the start of me being able to accept that I needed to learn more about myself, and that I needed to learn more about opening up to accepting myself, because I'd really struggled with that and I'd spent years of suppressing it. It's not just suddenly gonna change from a diagnosis. So now here we are, we're 6 months later, and I'm still struggling, but I'm doing so much better, even down to my hair being pink, which I know it sounds so stupid, but I would have worried so much about other people's expectations of me and fitting the molds of people, and worrying about, oh, does this go well with that, kind of seeking that validation. And now I'm just like, no, you need to start living for you. And I've been through some really tough times recently, and I've realised that I really need to start living for myself and living unapologetically as myself. And I have great support around me and people that do love me for who I am, and I just need to start that journey on learning to love myself for who I am as well. And that's not easy. It's not something that I expect to just like happen, just like, oh well, now you know who you are. Love it. Not easy at all, not when you've spent so many years suppressing that. But we're on the start of this journey, and I'm excited, and I really want to try and share that with as many people as possible, break down some of these stereotypes, work towards being more open and honest with people and with myself, and raising awareness. And that's a big part of why I've done this little chat today, and I really hope you found it useful. I run a no silly questions policy, so if you have any questions, please feel free to always contact me, Instagram, here, whatever. And I always try to talk open and honestly about my own experiences, about everything. So yeah, I hope this is helpful. Anything else you guys want to know, let me know. And yeah, I hope you have a really good day, and try and be as true to yourself as you can.